if you look at mole, in Mexico, it's an exact hybrid of colonization and indigenous ingredients. And so it's a perfect dish that explains what happened and when it happened, when it came to be, because mole wouldn't exist without some ingredients from Spain, and it wouldn't exist without the indigenous techniques. And so it's interesting. You can see the history of a country in its food.
Yeah, I for me the discovery of mole was one of these dishes. In this case, a sauce that is a dish, or a dish that is a sauce, and obviously it's many moles. But
Yeah.
then when you start reading about the ingredients and how the ingredients came to be, and how different people from faraway places, through centuries, they created something like shows you that we all need to be building longer tables, like the name of my podcast.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, yeah, it's dark moments in the history of civilizations. Unfortunately, that's humanity at its worst. But if anything, food is something like shines through. That if it's some legacy of dark moments in history, is when food through centuries just becomes richer. You listen, 1492, the Catholic kings expelling all the Jewish people from Spain. Well, that was a dark moment of history.
Yeah.
Going forward 500 years, all the Sephardic cooking that developed in Spain around the Mediterranean, culinarily, we are richer. And this
Yeah.
is what is amazing to know the history of the dishes,
Yeah.
we eat,
But
of
it's
the dishes we are.
100%. And I agree with what you're saying, because there's a celebration when you eat food. And so even though specifically in Mexico, you look at the brutality of the colonization, right? And we recognize that, and you see that because Mexico was a predominantly vegetarian society before the Spaniards arrived. So the cow, the pig, the goat, dairy, cheese, none of that would have existed if the Spaniards had never arrived. And the identity of Nuevo León is carne asada, carne asada, carne asada. The identity of the Yucatan is cochinita pibil. Like, you go, wow, this is a beautiful thing that did come out of some traumatic history. And so you're right. Like, if you could celebrate, that how food kind of like comes through as either a protest, like, no, we're gonna take your ingredient and then we're gonna make it our own. And that's what happens. Like with cochinita pibil, it's used with all indigenous spices, but it's the pork. So I think that's a beautiful fusions that happen through the history of countries, all countries.
So you already mentioned many dishes, but the first thing I realized the power of Mexican cooking was in a little market in one of the little towns outside Oaxaca. I love to go to those markets. Every day is a different market in one little town in the valley. And there was this woman, by the way, our woman that feed the world, no men and boys like me. In every corner around the world, the 7-8 billion people we are, is always the woman feeding the world. You women carry that responsibility. And was this older woman, beautifully dressed, with a little comal in front of her. She had masa, and she had the biggest basket of flores de calabaza, the squash blossoms I've seen in my life. You could smell them. And she will get the traditional Oaxacan cheese. She will make the big tortilla from scratch, put it on the comal. She will put a whole bunch of flowers and the cheese. Then she will put water with her finger in the edges. She will close the tortilla over. That was the best quesadilla I ate in my life to this day.
Yeah.
Because it's simplicity. This is something like it's my North Star. When I think about, not only about Mexican cooking, when I think about cooking,
Yeah.
I remember that quesadilla as being pure, sophisticated, traditional but modern, and where all the ingredients shine at once. That dish, still to this day, is is a dish I remember continuously.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, what was that dish for you in this last trip you took, where you were concentrated in making the show, and in the process you are discovering those things? You already mentioned two or three, but was
Yeah.
one that you say, "Oh my God"?
Well, it's so funny you mentioned quesillo because quesillo is Oaxacan cheese. If you're outside of Oaxaca, you say Oaxacan cheese, but if you're in Oaxaca, they get very angry if you don't call it quesillo. They're like, it's called quesillo, but it was an accident. Again, another happy accident because again, Mexicans, we indigenous cultures didn't have dairy. We didn't have the cow. And so cheese is a new thing to Mexico. And then when you look at the cuisine of Mexico, it all has cheese now. So quesillos was an accident when a little girl didn't watch the cheese and it started to curdle and she panicked and so she poured hot water into the cheese and then it got hard and so she tried to stretch it and tried to fix it before her parents got home and then she made basically the first string cheese of the world because she was trying to fix it and it was the happiest best accident ever. Quesillo, the best quesadillas are with cheese from Oaxaca. But for me we were in the Yucatan. I was in a tiny little hut, and a chef took me to his mother's house. And I say house because it was a palapa with dirt floor. And she was Mayan, didn't speak Spanish. Like Mayan, she only spoke Mayan. She never learned Spanish, and she made these tamales. And in the Yucatan, like I'm from Texas, so the tamales we make are with the masa, and you wrap it in a corn husk, and you fill it with pork, and you steam it. In the Yucatan, they wrap it in a banana leaf, and they put it in a pibil underground. So they cook it underground. So the tamale comes out hard, like crispy on the outside and soft on the inside. And it cooks for hours underground in a banana leaf. So it was like very different and very different flavors, obviously. But, she's talking to me in Mayan as her son is translating. And I could just feel her judging me because I wasn't rolling the tamales as well as she. As well as she. Well, I was like sweating. I was like, oh my God, she's judging me. I said, I have made tamales before, but I haven't made these. Anyway, they were amazing. And not only amazing, like taste wise, but the ancient technique that they use, cooking underground in the ground in the pib is still how they cook most things. It's and so the ancient techniques mixed with modern ingredients is really, to me, it was just fascinating to learn to eat it. And then she made a salsa that was super indigenous. It was just of seeds and nopal, cactus, and chile. Like it was a super indigenous salsa on top of this hybrid of culture of a tamale. It was a moment to remember. And they blessed, they say a huge blessing for food every time. They thank the earth. There's such a connection to the earth and what the earth gives you. So you can't even begin to cook with the ingredients unless you say thank you to the earth. And that was a beautiful ceremony we did.
This episode of Longer Tables is sponsored by State Farm. When you get a new car or a new home, the first thing you might find yourself saying is, I cannot believe it, or this is incredible. But what you really want to say is the one thing that can get you the help you need. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. State Farm is there with the coverage you need for your car, your home, and even boats, motorcycles, RVs, and other things that matter to you. With a State Farm agent, you know someone is there to help you choose the coverage you need. With so many coverage options, it feels good knowing you can find what works best for you and your needs. And when you need ways to get help, State Farm gives you options there too, whether it is in person or on the phone with your local agent or on statefarm.com or on their award winning app. State Farm lets you do things your way. So when you need help protecting the things that matter most, remember to say, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
So we're gonna see you in your show trying to make tamales. That's the type of things we will see.
Mayan. That one was the Mayan tamales.
The Mayan.
I make a mole in Oaxaca. I go fishing in Jalisco. I make birria in Jalisco as well.
Wow.
I do a huge carne asada in Nuevo León, in Monterrey, in the north, which is very much like Texas. Um, they take their meat very seriously, and they do these. Carne asada is not. It's not a noun. It's like a way of life.
So people of longer tables, people of America, people of the world, March 26, searching for Mexico on CNN with the one Eva Longoria. We cannot wait. So I'm gonna take you somewhere else right
Okay.
now. I'm from Spain. The only thing I ever knew when I was young was Spanish cooking, but I got highly interested in learning about other cuisines because I want to learn and I want to share with others what I learn. I have a Mexican restaurant, Oyamel,
Oh wow! No way.
and we're friends, and you didn't know that one.
I didn't know
Oyamel,
that. Where is it?
Almo-
In DC?
in DC, 20 years. I have a Mexican Chinese restaurant, which, by the way, is not my invention. That's something like happened in Mexico through history, where Chinese people coming from California to build the railway, they move to Mexicali, and there you find all these Chinese descendants, Mexican Chinese, and where you find a mix of traditional dishes and ingredients of Mexico mixed with traditional Chinese ingredients and or techniques. But what I'm going to ask you is this. It's been this kind of, over the last years, if, in this case, a chef from Spain can be cooking Mexican or not. Nobody has ever told me anything. But my argument will be, in my Spanish restaurant, my success in my Spanish restaurant, that this year I'm celebrating 30 years, Jaleo. You know who has been cooking Spanish cooking for the last 30 years? Yes, I have some Spaniards, but I've been having people from Bolivia, people from Salvador, people from Mexico.
Yeah.
And if you eat the food, the only thing you will know is good or it's not. And I tell you, it's great. So what I'm only saying is, my opinion is that this is nonsense. Because you can have amazing chefs from other countries
Yeah.
doing the best paella ever. The best paella I ever eaten are many amazing individuals from Central America that work with me. I sent them to Spain, they train. Over the years, they became masters. So me, I also have a Mexican restaurant. Obviously, I have Mexican people in the restaurants. They help me be better. I learn. What is your thoughts about that? Don't you think like we all should be free to cook and celebrate other cultures? Yes, yes, or yes?
Yeah, I mean, not only we should be free, we should be doing it because the easiest way into another culture is food. You can go to China and not speak Chinese and have a great cultural experience because of the food. You can go to India and eat the food and you go, oh, I get it. There's something that unlocks a culture, that food holds the key to. And so not only, yes, we should be free to do it, we should be doing it. And that's the reason I wanted to do this show is because a lot of times, the people who villainize Mexicans in this country are the same people that are going Taco Tuesday, margaritas,
Guacamole.
guacamole. And you're like, yeah, but that comes from somewhere. So why? And again, food is intricately tied to the people, and so it's. I'm hoping that the show opens some people's eyes to the beautiful country that Mexico is, and the beautiful people in that country.